airplane that was coming into Arizona above Phoenix. This is the North Phoenix area. This is as the airplane was approaching Sky Harbor Airport at 4:20 p.m. on December 31st of 2022, and this is what they saw out the window of the aircraft. Some sort of dark objects. They all appeared to be about the same altitude, probably around 5,000 feet. That's kind of where the plane was at the time it was coming in for a landing. And you can see these unusual dark objects that are kind of flickering over here off in the distance, once again above North Phoenix. They didn't appear to have a payload hanging down below them. They didn't appear to be Chinese lanterns. I zoomed in as close as I could. They don't look like hot air balloons. I don't know what these things are. They're just kind of mysterious. I thought I'd share them with you guys as I found them rather intriguing. Don't know what these things are. There's 7 of them, and again, they're all at about the same altitude, probably around 5,000 feet. They don't appear to be moving. They're holding the same position, or at least the same general position. And at around 5,000 feet, there's normally constant wind, and these don't appear to be being influenced by wind. Here's a inverted format. Light is dark, dark is light. Just looking for any features, or possibly anything hanging off the bottom of these dark objects that were in the sky above North Phoenix about 3 weeks ago on December 31st of 2022.
That's just a little something I like to call confirmation of revelation. Only one other person besides myself has ever seen those black dot craft, as I call them, and that is, God, his name's escaping me right now. He calls them cloud tenders. It'll come to me. Deadeye Customs. It would have bugged the hell out of me if I didn't stop and remember. So in this video, I want to do a deep dive into the Snyderverse. Since there's only about 50, 60 subscribers here, basically the core audience, I'm going to speak as if those watching this video have been watching for pretty much the entirety of my YouTube page since I went to Missouri, Independence, Missouri, and before. Or people who have gone and caught up on all those videos because they recognize there's something going on here that's not going on any other channel. So I pointed out those black dot craft in my own videos. One that I call Plasma Powered Thunderbird Source Video. I've shown them in another MB3 video in the Woodbury fire. He's pointing over his shoulder saying, "You see that big giant cloud of smoke? You see it right there? You see it? You see it?" And he even throws it into inverted mode. He's not drawing your attention to the cloud of smoke. He's drawing your attention to the little black dot craft that's floating above that cloud of smoke. I've shown you these black dot craft hovering above a video Joe Embriano took. So Deadeye Customs calls them cloud tenders. He's even picked up my terminology and used the word black dot craft in some of his video titles and stuff. When I first filmed those black dot craft was the day I went to Missouri. And so some of these things I'm going to say, they're not necessarily for right now. They're to compartmentalize and put in your data bank until a day when they're applicable and useful. Because even I have to disassociate with much of my own experiences in order to continue operating in the real world with the normal people. I have to kind of compartmentalize sun tunnel, airborne aircraft carrier, black dot craft, remote control clouds, portal in the cathedral, and microchipped population. But those things are all going to come together in a crescendo of experience, and when they do, that's when these things that I share with you will suddenly become applicable and relevant, and the centerpiece of your self-image and worldview and cosmology. And until then, you got to kind of disassociate with those things in order to operate in the real world. But when those things that are real all come front and center out in view, the real world is what you'll have to disassociate with. Everything else you've ever known, which will no longer be applicable or relevant. Until then, we disassociate with things like plasma fire. I've said often there are two forms of adaptation, assimilation and accommodation. And I've recently added a third, but it's actually a form of non-adaptation. It's called disassociation. Because plasma fire does not assimilate into your worldview, it doesn't fit, you must accommodate and make new space within your worldview. Put some new files in the filing cabinet in order to file this information in. So you can either assimilate information if it fits nicely into your pre-existing ideas of your self-image and worldview, or if it doesn't fit, you have to accommodate and adjust and stretch your perception to encompass this new experience and understanding. Or what most people do is they just disassociate. Dissociative identity disorder is the same thing as split personality schizophrenia. It's what happens when something is traumatic. Whether it's a car accident and you don't remember what happened for the entire week before the car accident because the concussion, it wasn't even necessarily the concussion, but the trauma. It also happens with like early childhood sex abuse, where that information, that experience doesn't fit into their world. They don't know what to do with it, where to put it, how to process the information, how to apply it. So they compartmentalize it. They split their mind. They put that information in a separate compartment and they don't think about it. And that's kind of what you got to do to operate in the real world with these experiences that I've had. But when these come front and center, as they all will, just like the black dot craft have now been shown to you up close on Mr. MB3's channel, and he is an agent engaged in what they call soft disclosure, drip, 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 to help you acclimate to this new world that's going to hit everyone like a ton of bricks. And that's kind of also what I am. We are the generation that walks between worlds. I have offered my services as a living bridge for those that will be able to walk between worlds more easily because of my drip, drip, drip of information, letting you vicariously experience my experiences by sharing them with you the way I do. And some of you who cross that bridge with me, when the time comes, will also provide a living bridge for others to follow the path. Because we are the generation that walks between worlds. Today, I don't remember the name of the channel, Static in the Attic, I think, put out a video on what they call cargo cults. From World War II, when very primitive spear chucker type tribal people came in contact with the highly technologically advanced United States military and saw these airplanes and all the cargo getting dropped out, it created religions that they call cargo cults, where people think God comes from America. And they create runways and wooden effigies of airplanes, and they even put USA on these poles that they hold, and they march around just like they saw the military doing, marching in formation and stuff. And this is the reason for the prime directive of Star Trek. Not to influence a culture in order that will mutate and derail the growth and development of that culture, essentially retard that culture, because they came in contact with a highly advanced civilization, so it retarded and redirected and mutated the growth and development of those cultures. The reason for the prime directive in Star Trek is to keep from developing cargo cults. When those primitive civilizations and cultures come in contact with a more highly advanced culture and civilization, that's what happens. So for the most part, those more highly advanced civilizations tend to not interfere by not interacting with those less developed cultures of consciousness. But there are exceptions to that rule, like just before the recycle. You know, we're in the Great Reset, just before the cataclysmic destruction cycle. It is then appropriate to interact with that culture and assimilate some of them into your own prior to the Great Reset, the destruction cycle. So when I speak of myself as an ambassador between us, the primitively developed human race, and them, the more highly advanced race, it's a real thing. For the purposes I've just described, to be a living bridge and help you adapt. But no one gets on board thinking they know something. All these soft-minded people taking a hardline stance on things they don't understand are not going to be able to adapt. This is what broke me down. Completely disintegrated my self-image and worldview, so I no longer had to filter these experiences that I've had. Remind you, sun tunnel. It's as real as those black dot craft. So real it got my channel wiped out in a form of censorship that is unprecedented. No one else has ever seen. The whole channel get wiped, all the videos, and remove all the subscribers, and then let them have it back the next day. Say, oops, our bad. After review, it turns out you were not in violation of any of our community standards and guidelines. Here's your channel back. No videos on it. No subscribers. That sun tunnel is as real as those black dot craft. That airborne aircraft carrier that I showed you through the Santilli telescope is as real as those black dot craft and that sun tunnel, and they are all connected. I revealed these three things in 1 month. March 16th, I filmed the sun tunnel. March 16th, 2019, I filmed the sun tunnel, and it got my previous 8 months worth of videos wiped out. March 16th, 2019. The day I went to Missouri, April 19th, 2019, which is about 1 month later, is the day I first filmed those black dot craft. And between those two dates is when I showed you the airborne aircraft carrier. Within 1 month, I revealed the sun tunnel, the airborne aircraft carrier, and the black dot craft, and they are all connected. Like the movie Elysium, like the concept of Elysium, a city in the sky. Those black dot craft are demonstrating anti-gravitational technology. Whether it's a breakaway civilization like, Bezos and Elon Musk, or a breakaway civilization from a prior existence, from before the last cataclysm. And before the last cataclysm, we know there was highly advanced, highly technologically developed civilizations here. And some of them last. Within 1 year of that, I also revealed microchipped population and plasma fire. My point is, that trip that I took to Missouri, when I said you're all going to get recycled, was not a nervous breakdown as you might think of it, as if it's all just a psychological meltdown and it's all in the guy's head. Proven by the fact that I revealed the sun tunnel 1 month prior, the airborne aircraft carrier 2 weeks prior, and the black dot craft the day that I left. Those black dot craft may be controlling these remote control clouds in a form of technology like cymatics. Refer here to the music video Me by Taylor Swift, where the dragon cloud comes down and gobbles her up and then just turns to dust. And at the beginning of that video, it shows a snake hissing at the camera, and then it strikes at the camera and just turns to butterflies. Like neither of them will actually hurt you, it's the fear. Refer to the movie Dune. Fear is the mind killer, and the sleeper must awaken. And all those people with the preconceived ideas are not going to be able to awaken or adapt to this reality, to be able to walk between worlds. All of these things I've revealed are all interconnected. They are not separate issues, separate revelations. They are all pieces of one larger revelation that's going to happen. like the airborne aircraft carrier comes through the sun tunnel and then deploys the little black dot craft and utilizes this energy that we're talking about called plasma fire, which is provably directed when you look at those 5 Secret Service vehicles that just got smoked. Who's really in control here? The president? I don't think so. I've said before, in just like my last video on this channel, that I know this experience that I've had, that I've shared with you, has affected some people to an even greater degree than 9/11. Because that was one day and you've had 20 years to process it. But just like 9/11, it disorients and then reorients your relationship to all the people around you who can't see the truth that you do, and the institutions around you who you know are hiding that truth. When it comes to plasma fire alone, those who can see it, you know that no one else can see it. And you know the institutions around us are keeping quiet, proving that they want to keep a grip over the heart and mind of the people by keeping them ignorant and unaware of the plasma fire. All those institutions you now have a reoriented relationship with. You see them from a different angle. There was a time when I went to the FBI Cyber Squad Division and the Utah State Capitol Building Attorney General's office with these videotapes of still frame images that I found in these commercials. That's when I thought those institutions would take this ball and run with it. I now know differently. So my point is to remember all of the things, an all-encompassing recap of the Snyderverse, and that all of these things are connected, and that there will come a time when they are front and center, the only thing that matters. Until then, you got to kind of disassociate from those things in order to operate in the real world, the regular world. But there will come a time when those things are front and center, so much so that you have to disassociate with the real world and the regular world that you've always known, because none of that will no longer matter. All the material goods that you've acquired will do you no good, along with the money. And all of your previous life experiences, all of the power structures that are, will suddenly and instantly vanish when that more highly advanced, technologically developed civilization lands on our island, kind of like the United States military did on those pygmy Polynesian tribal spear chucker primitive people's islands. But unlike the United States military, who doesn't care about the consequences of the effect that it's going to have on those people, that highly advanced, developed, technologically advanced civilization that is about to interact with us and is interacting with us just prior to the cataclysm has been laying the path for generations in these muse messages, laying that truth in the movies and the music for those who would be able to see it and receive that understanding. They laid those breadcrumbs for this process right here of awakening, of cultivating the consciousness and extracting those who are capable of walking between worlds. We're leaving all the haters behind before the sun decides to hide. The Sail by AWOL Nation and Sail Away by David Gray. Crazy skies all wild above me now, wind howling at my face when everything I held so dear disappeared without a trace. And all the times I tasted love, never knew quite what I had. Little darling, if you hear me now, I never needed you so bad. So sail away with me, and what will be, will be. I put my heart in your hand. Sail Away by AWOL Nation. Sail with me into the dark. This is how an angel cries. This is how I show my love. A very sophisticated and refined interaction with this culture prior to the full, outright, open disclosure where everyone's whole self-image and worldview is shattered, they may go to great lengths to make attempts to acclimate some people so they will be able to walk between worlds and their consciousness is not shattered and they are not rendered dysfunctional from fear when everything they held so dear disappears without a trace. And that's why they engage with ambassadors like myself as an intermediary. That's why they lay these breadcrumbs in the music. Because of that disassociation process I just described. Right now you got to kind of disassociate from plasma fire, sun tunnel, airborne aircraft carrier, black dot craft, remote control clouds, microchipped population, and that portal in the cathedral, which is just as real as all the rest, to operate in the regular world. But when all of those things are suddenly revealed to everyone all at once, those are all that matters, and you have to disassociate with the rest of the real world because none of that matters anymore, and none of that stuff you used to know fits into your new experience. And this may be what actually happens when Jade Dreamers describes the great amnesia that happens at the point of the cataclysm. It may actually just be the human psyche's survival mechanism. Just like it disassociates with that traumatic experience, whether it's the car wreck or the sex abuse, because that event, that experience, that information doesn't fit into your world of understanding, so you compartmentalize it. Well, your entire life will no longer fit into your world of understanding when plasma fire, sun tunnel, airborne aircraft carrier, black dot craft, remote control clouds, portal in the cathedral, and microchipped population are openly disclosed, along with everything else that goes with it. Suddenly, your previous existence no longer matters, and you compartmentalize the whole thing. You forget everything you thought you knew about the whole world. This is like what happens in Stockholm Syndrome. I remember after the fires, people say, right, the California fires or an earthquake or a hurricane or a flood or anything, they say, it's like we don't even have any memories from before the fire. The only thing we remember is since the fires to now, because it's been so traumatic, you had to compartmentalize everything else in your life and just deal with the things that are happening from the trauma point forward. And the rest of the world is going to be so traumatized, they will have amnesia. They won't remember anything about their previous existence because it won't matter anymore. They will have to disassociate. Dissociative identity disorder, split personality disorder, schizophrenia, they will have to disassociate with everything they've ever known when everything they held so dear disappears without a trace. Until then, I have to disassociate with my life experiences, as real as they are, because they don't fit into the rest of the world. When my life experiences become the reality we all experience, they will have to disassociate with their experience, their world, in order to fit into mine. Until then, they disassociate from plasma fire because it doesn't fit into their world anywhere. I find nothing applicable. That's not applicable or relevant, and there won't be any consequences for me. Sorry, I won't get into that. So it is good to remember these things and know that this information is not for the here and now, because it's not applicable to your here and now real world that everyone else lives in. But there will come a time when all of these things are brought to the forefront and are the centerpiece of your self-image and your worldview and your cosmology. And everything else gets disassociated because it doesn't matter, it doesn't fit in, it's not applicable to the world once we get introduced. To those who come through the sun tunnel on those airborne aircraft carrier, the people of Elysium, of the previous resets, the breakaway civilization, So, in that 1 month of compressed revelation I received, from March 16th, the Sun Tunnel. A week or two later, the airborne aircraft carrier. A week or two later, on the day I left to Missouri, to Independence, Missouri, which is where the Mormons go back to in the latter days, was the day that I filmed the Black Dot craft overhead while I'm saying, look at the dragons, look at all these dragons. Those Black Dot craft have something to do with my nervous breakdown. And they are also associated with that airborne aircraft carrier and that sun tunnel. And the plasma fire. And when I went to Missouri, I was saying, you're going to be recycled. On my way out there, I was saying, just love them all a little bit more on your way out, because you know what's going to happen to them. This was 8 months before COVID. So everyone is going about business as usual, saying, dude, it's not the end of the world. What are you tripping on? And at the time, I only had about 35, 45 subscribers. Because a month earlier, Sun Tunnel, March 16th, they wiped out my whole channel, all my subscribers. So by the time 1 month later, April 19th, when I went to Missouri, I only had about 35, 45 subscribers. And to them I was saying all of the things I said that came through me, including that you're about to get recycled. I said it multiple times. I'm speaking to you guys now as if you're the ones that have already watched all those videos and you know what I'm talking about. We are in the middle of the Great Reset. That's the same thing as recycle. Just prior to the cataclysm, when they violate the Prime Directive on Star Trek to not interact with less developed and more primitive civilizations, because you might retard and mutate their growth and development, like the cargo cults that now have religions based on what they saw. The Great Reset. You're going to be recycled. Those revelations that I had are real. I have the video evidence of them. The Sun Tunnel, that's real. That's not just a thought that I had. That's a fucking video I took and it got my channel wiped out. When everyone else has to come to terms with this, these things that I've shared with you, that you put in the back burner and kind of compartmentalize and disassociate from, will become the centerpiece of your reality. And at that point, you will be much more able to easily, or capable at all, of adapting. Those same religions, so I don't think they're here to save us or to destroy us. But some of them, they are here to induct us, to assimilate us into their culture, not like the Borg, like the collective initiation Greg Braden speaks of in his videos, Awakening to Zero Point and Beyond Zero Point, the collective initiation. 0 point is zero magnetics, the great cataclysm cycle. And beyond 0 point, the collective initiation, the initiation with these more highly advanced and developed societies that come right at that point of the Great Reset. That's why Greg Braden titled his video what he did. Awakening to 0 point, the cataclysm, the recycle, the pole shift, the electromagnetic plasma changeover event. That's 0 point, awakening to 0 point. And beyond 0 point, the collective initiation. This initiation I'm speaking of is a process you go through when you're going to be inducted into another group of people. We are going to be inducted into a group. Those are your space brothers. You break me down, you build me up, believer, I'm a believer. Break me down, build me back up, and do whatever it takes. Those are two songs by Imagine Dragons that use that line. And in Whatever It Takes, they show you the water cataclysm and the fire cataclysm in the videography. I got broken down when my whole world disappeared because I found an implant, which made me capable of having these experiences and sharing them with you and not having to fit everything I see and experience through my preconceived idea, the lens and the filter of my cosmology and my self-image and worldview, because that all got broken down when I found this implant. So I was able to adapt and experience these things and not try to conceive them in a way that fits in between the bookends of my known reality, because my known reality had already gotten shattered. We are in the collective initiation now, and I said you're all going to have to go through this too, and everyone's getting a chance to show their true colors. Since COVID has hit, that is the case. And what a more humane way to try and sift out those that are not compatible with this new world, that are not going to be able to walk between worlds. Considering the fact that they are just dying suddenly, without pain and suffering prior to. Like I said, they're not here to save us nor destroy us. This is a cycle we go through. But there are some of us whose consciousness is compatible with this transition. But most of us are not compatible. So, I've been working on a jailbreak, angels on the sidelines again, wondering when this tug of war will end. Wondering why Father gave these humans free will and now they're all confused. The institutions that are currently keeping you in the dark about plasma fire, which is all of them, do so in order to maintain control over you. They maintain that grip over your heart and mind, allow you to see what they want you to see and think what they want you to think. The same way they hid plasma fire from you for the last 5 years, provably. They also hid these other truths from you. Those forces that are at the perimeter that I've spoken of, that are about to breach the perimeter and free us from this cult of a compound like Jim Jones Island. When I've said don't defend Jim, people who think we're already free will see it as us being enslaved. When power is seized worldwide on all different levels. Those who realize that we are enslaved will see it as we are being liberated. Most of the people on Jim Jones Island are not compatible with this concept that they could be liberated from the tyranny of their current enslavement. So before they breach the compound and breach the perimeter, they send some people in to try to talk to those inside the cult, because we know they're so brainwashed that they're going to rebel and retaliate. They've been conditioned to see us as the devil. And so before they go into the compound to try to free these people from this cult, they send some people to infiltrate the cult, to try to talk to the people from the inside and give you a heads up about what's going to go down. That when these guys breach the perimeter, don't defend Jim. Everything you've been told is a lie. All these truths have been withheld from you. And you are on an island conceptually. You're in a prison and they put a ring fence in your mind. And we are essentially that primitive cargo cult, underdeveloped culture that's about to come into contact with a much more highly advanced culture who understands social engineering and has gone to great lengths to prepare us for this in those muse messages that they left meaning within for generations leading up to this cycle. For so long, Joni Mitchell, Don't Interrupt the Sorrow. I think that was probably made before I was born. Don't interrupt the sorrow, darn right. In flames are prophet witches, be polite. Truth goes up in vapors, steeples lean, winds of change, patriarchs, snug in your Bible Belt dreams. God goes up the chimney like childhood Santa Claus. The good slaves love the good book, a rebel loves a cause. They left these messages for those who would be able to glean the understanding of them in the future. For unborn people that weren't even born yet. That's how sophisticated and refined and the great lengths they've gone to in this painstaking effort to try to reach us prior to this interface. The song Schism by Tool. Cold silence has a tendency to atrophy any sense of compassion between supposed lovers. You watch that music video. That is talking about two different civilizations that come together, but they have been distant, and the cold silence atrophied any sense of compassion between supposed lovers. And the institutions that keep us in the dark about our relationship to them, to maintain the cold silence, to atrophy any sense of compassion that we have for them, are already beating the war drums. There are no such thing as aliens, only demons, interdimensional, not extraterrestrial. Why? Because they know you will withdraw all of your compassion from something interdimensional. But if it's extraterrestrial, you might be compassionate towards them. How and why? I don't know, but I know that that's what they've figured out. For some reason, whatever the reason is, does not matter. These soft-minded people taking a hardline stance on things they don't understand are real adamant. There is no such thing as extraterrestrial, just interdimensional. What the fuck's the difference? Seems like a distinction without a difference to me. The difference is, they know more people will withdraw compassion if you say interdimensional. And more people might be more open-minded and soft-hearted if you say extraterrestrial. That's why they insist there is no extraterrestrial, only interdimensional demons. They've been conditioned to retaliate and rebel against anything besides us. This is childhood's end. We've matured our consciousness, regardless of the degree to which our consciousness has matured. The cosmic egg timer is up. Pole shift is going down. And so regardless of whether or not we're ready for this, it's happening. Because there's a cycle. And when that cycle comes to an end, is when they violate the prime directive not to interfere with a culture's development by interacting with them. Mr. MB3, he is doing soft disclosure by incremental disclosure through exposure and showing you these things. My hat goes off to Mr. MB3.